There is a phrase that if it ever shows up next to your name inside your bank's computer system, can freeze every dollar you own, even though you have done absolutely nothing wrong. No court has to approve it, no judge has to sign anything. Your bank can simply decide that your own money stays exactly where it is and you cannot touch it. Not because you are behind on anything, not because you owe the IRS, not because you passed away. You are alive, you are competent, it is your money, and they can still hold it. For days, sometimes weeks, while your mortgage payment bounces, while your medication sits unfilled at the pharmacy counter, while you sit on the phone being told, "We are reviewing your account." This is happening to more seniors right now than at any point in this country's history. And almost nobody watching this video knows the 3 words that trigger it. By the end of this video, you will. And you will also know the one piece of paper that can cut a 2-week freeze down to 2 days. My name is Kevin. If you are new here, this channel exists for one reason. We read the rules that decide what happens to your money so you find out before the system decides for you. Subscribe and turn on the bell, because this one could be the difference between your money moving when you need it to or sitting frozen for weeks. Let me start with why this is happening at all. For most of banking history, a bank could not touch your money without your permission unless a court ordered them to. That has changed, and it has changed specifically in the last several years. Verified card. Source: National Adult Protective Services Association, napsa-now.org. Elder financial exploitation used to be handled almost entirely after the fact. Money disappeared. A family noticed months later. By the time anyone acted, the money was already gone, sent overseas, converted to cryptocurrency, or spent. Lawmakers and regulators decided that waiting until after the money was gone was not good enough. So they built a different kind of tool. Instead of prosecuting after the theft, they gave banks the power to pause before it happens. That is a real, meaningful shift in how this country protects older Americans. And it has worked. Millions of dollars have been stopped before they ever left a legitimate account holder's control. But every tool built to stop a thief can also catch someone who was never a thief, standing in the wrong place at the wrong moment. That is the trade-off underneath everything in this video. 2 separate systems now give banks and brokerage firms the legal right to freeze your account on their own with no court order, no warrant, nothing signed by a judge. The first system lives inside the computer at your own bank. Verified card. Source: Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, consumerfinance.gov. Every bank runs a fraud detection algorithm on your account around the clock. It watches for patterns: a large withdrawal that does not match your normal habits, a wire transfer to someone you have never sent money to before, a sudden request to send money through gift cards or cryptocurrency. Any one of those can trigger an automatic hold immediately. No phone call first, no warning. The second system is not a computer. It is a law. Over the last several years, more than 30 states have passed what are called elder financial exploitation hold statutes. Verified card. Source: National Adult Protective Services Association, napsa-now.org. These laws give a bank employee the legal authority to place a hold on your account simply because they have a reasonable belief that you might be a victim of financial exploitation. Reasonable belief, not proof, not a diagnosis, a feeling that something looks wrong. And brokerage firms operate under a federal version of the exact same rule. It is called FINRA Rule 2165. Verified card. Source: FINRA.org. Under that rule, a firm can place an initial hold of up to 15 business days, and if their internal review is not finished, they can extend it another 10. That is up to 25 business days, 5 full weeks, where your own money that you earned, that is legally yours, simply does not move. Now, I want to be honest about something right at the start. These laws were not written to punish you. They were written because elder financial exploitation is a real and enormous problem. Losses to elder fraud in this country run well over $3 billion every single year. Verified card. Source: Federal Bureau of Investigation, IC3 Elder Fraud Report. Scammers target seniors specifically because a lifetime of savings sits in these accounts. So the freeze exists because it has saved real people from losing everything. I am not here to tell you these laws are evil. I am here to tell you exactly how they work so that when they aim in your direction by mistake, you are not standing there helpless. Let me tell you about Sherman. Sherman is 79. He lives outside Reno, Nevada. 38 years as a machinist. One Tuesday afternoon, his phone rang. The voice on the other end sounded exactly like his grandson. Panicked, crying, he said he had been in a car accident and needed $9,000 wired immediately to cover his bail before the story made it back to his parents. Sherman loves that boy more than almost anything in this world. He got in his truck and drove straight to his bank. He asked the teller to wire $9,000 to an account he had never used before. The teller's screen lit up red. New payee, unusual amount, classic scam pattern. Under his bank's fraud prevention policy, the wire was held. Sherman was furious. He raised his voice right there at the counter. He said his grandson needed him. The bank asked him for one favor. Call your grandson directly on the number you already have saved, not the number that called you. Sherman stepped outside and made the call. His grandson answered from his college dorm room, confused and completely fine. Verified card. Source: Federal Trade Commission, reportfraud.ftc.gov. That hold, the one that made Sherman furious for about 10 minutes, saved him $9,000. That is this system working exactly the way it was designed to. And Sherman's story is becoming more common, not less. Scammers now use artificial intelligence to clone a voice from just a few seconds of audio pulled from a social media video or a voicemail greeting. Verified card. Source: Federal Trade Commission, reportfraud.ftc.gov. The voice on the phone can sound exactly like your grandchild. Same tone, same way of speaking, because it is quite literally built from a recording of them speaking. This is precisely why these fraud detection systems have become so aggressive in the last few years. The scam itself has gotten harder to detect by ear, so banks lean more heavily on the transaction pattern instead. New payee, unusual amount, manufactured urgency. Even when the voice fools you completely, the pattern often does not fool the algorithm. That is genuinely one of the last remaining defenses against a scam that technology has made almost impossible to catch by instinct alone. But now let me tell you about Verna, because this is the story that should worry you. Verna is 74. She lives in Macon, Georgia. Her daughter was getting married. Verna wanted to give her $15,000 toward the wedding, her own money, saved over decades, a gift she had planned for over a year. She walked into her bank and asked to wire it to the venue for the final payment. New payee, large amount. Same red flags that saved Sherman, triggered on Verna's account too. Except this time, there was no scam. There was only a mother trying to pay for her daughter's wedding. The bank placed a hold. Verna was told it could take up to 15 business days for the review to complete. The venue needed the payment in 5. Verna did not know she had any rights in that moment. She did not know there was a form to request an expedited review. She did not know she could ask for the reason in writing. She simply waited and worried and apologized to her daughter for a delay that was never her fault. The payment eventually went through, 9 days late. The venue charged a penalty. Verna paid it out of her own pocket on top of the gift. Same system, same red flags. One person, it protected. One person, it punished. The difference was not luck. The difference was knowledge. Now let me pull back the curtain on how the algorithm actually decides, because understanding this changes how you handle every large transaction for the rest of your life. Banks do not watch your account for one single red flag. They score a combination. Each unusual factor adds points to a risk score. A new payee alone might add a small amount of risk. A new payee plus an unusually large amount plus a request for gift cards plus the word immediately stacks those points very quickly. Verified card. Source: Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, consumerfinance.gov. Cross a certain threshold and the system does not ask permission. It holds the transaction automatically before a human ever looks at it. This matters because it means you can often reduce your own risk simply by reducing how many factors stack at once. If you know a large transfer is coming, split the reasons apart. Call ahead and explain the purpose days before you request it. That single phone call removes the surprise, which is one of the heaviest factors in the entire score. Now let me tell you about Milo. Milo is 76. He lives outside Wichita, Kansas. He spent his career running a small hardware store that he eventually sold to a young couple from his own church. Milo held the financing himself. Every month, for 11 years, that couple wired him a payment. Same amount, same day, same account. Then, one month, the buyers finished paying off the loan early with a single final payment. Nearly $40,000 arriving all at once from an account that had only ever sent small regular payments before. The algorithm did not know 11 years of history. It only saw a massive, unusual deposit that did not match the account's typical pattern. Deposits can trigger review too, not only withdrawals. Verified card. Source: Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, consumerfinance.gov. Milo's bank placed a temporary hold on the incoming funds while they confirmed the source. Milo was annoyed, but he did something almost nobody does. He called the bank before the deposit ever arrived because the buyers had told him the final payment was coming. He explained exactly what it was and why. When the deposit hit 2 days later, the review was already half finished. The hold lifted within hours instead of days. Milo did not avoid the algorithm, he simply got ahead of it. That is the entire secret hiding inside this whole system. The algorithm reacts to surprise. The less surprising your bank finds you, the faster everything moves. If this is the first time anyone has explained that your own bank can freeze your money without a court order, do me one favor, subscribe and turn on the bell. Because next week, I am covering the exact list of transactions that trigger these holds so you can avoid setting one off by accident. Now, I want to stop here because Verna is the exact reason I built the thing I am about to tell you about. Nobody at that bank handed her a card that said, "Here is what to do next." Nobody told her the words to say. The rules that governed her own money were written in a language designed to make her simply wait. That is why I put together a plain English guide called The Quiet Rules. It is the drawer version of everything I cover on this channel. Written large, written simple, the exact form to request an expedited review. The exact sentence to say to a bank manager that moves you to the front of the line. The documents to have ready before you ever walk in to request a large transfer. Because the families who move through this fastest are the ones who already know what to ask for before the hold ever happens. You can find it at kevinexplains.shop. The link is right below this video, or scan the QR code on your screen right now. It is also in the pinned comment, and there is a 7-day guarantee, always. If it does not give you something, you did not have before, you send it back. Now let me show you exactly what triggers this, because if you know the patterns, you can often avoid setting one off by accident. Pattern 1. A new payee. Anytime you send money to a person or an account you have never sent money to before, your risk of a hold goes up significantly. Pattern 2. An amount that is unusual for you specifically. The system does not care what a large withdrawal looks like for the average person. It cares what is large for you. If you normally withdraw $200 and suddenly ask for $8,000, that gap is exactly what the algorithm is built to catch. Pattern 3. Gift cards or cryptocurrency. Verified card. Source: Federal Trade Commission, reportfraud.ftc.gov. Legitimate businesses almost never ask to be paid in gift cards. Scammers do it constantly because gift card payments are nearly impossible to reverse. If a teller hears that a payment is going toward gift cards, that alone can trigger an automatic hold. Pattern 4. Urgency. If you tell a bank employee that you need this money sent immediately, today, right now, or something terrible will happen, that single word, immediately, is one of the most common markers in real fraud cases. Scammers manufacture urgency on purpose because panicked people do not stop to think. Unfortunately, that means legitimate emergencies trigger the same alarm. Pattern 5. A change in behavior around a power of attorney or a new person added to your account. If someone who was not previously authorized on your account suddenly starts making decisions, or a new joint owner appears, followed by large withdrawals, that is one of the most watched patterns in all of elder financial exploitation law. Pattern 6. Isolation. If a bank employee notices that a family member or a caregiver is suddenly present for every single interaction, speaking on your behalf, discouraging you from talking privately with the teller, that alone can be enough to trigger a hold on the entire account. Now let me tell you about a 7th pattern, because it is the one that surprises people the most: your joint account. If you share an account with a spouse, an adult child, or anyone else, understand this clearly. A hold placed because of one owner's activity can freeze the entire account. Verified card. Source: Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, consumerfinance.gov. Every dollar in it, even the portion that never had anything to do with whatever triggered the review. Let me tell you about Otis and Colleen. Otis is 81. Colleen is his daughter. She was added to his checking account 3 years ago in Toledo, Ohio, specifically so she could help pay his bills as his eyesight started failing. Otis trusted her completely, and for 3 years, that arrangement worked exactly the way it was supposed to. Then Colleen went through a difficult divorce. Her attorney recommended moving some of her own savings into a separate account for a short period during the proceedings. She used the joint account with her father to route part of that transfer, simply because it was the account she had immediate access to. Large transfer, unusual pattern, new destination account. The algorithm did not know it was looking at a divorce. It only saw a large, unusual movement of funds on an elderly account holder's account. The entire account froze. Otis's Social Security deposit landed 2 days into the hold. He could not touch it. His automatic mortgage payment failed. Otis had done nothing. He did not even know about his daughter's transfer until the bank called him directly to ask if he was aware of it. He was confused and frightened, and for a moment genuinely wondered if his daughter was taking advantage of him. She was not. But the Frees did not know that, and for 4 days, a father and a daughter, who trusted each other completely, sat on opposite ends of a phone call, each one wondering what the other one had done. The hold was eventually lifted once Colleen provided her attorney's letter confirming the transfer was part of a legal proceeding and had nothing to do with her father's money. But those 4 days cost Otis a missed mortgage payment and a late fee, and cost father and daughter something a late fee cannot measure. If you share an account with anyone, understand that their financial life can freeze yours, even when you did nothing and knew nothing. That is worth thinking about carefully the next time someone suggests adding a name to your account for convenience. Now let me go deeper on one pattern specifically because it deserves its own section entirely. Power of attorney. If you have signed a durable power of attorney, naming someone to manage your finances if you ever become unable to, understand this clearly. Banks train their employees specifically to watch how that document gets used. Verified card. Source: National Adult Protective Services Association, napsa-now.org. A power of attorney, used correctly, pays your bills, manages your investments, and handles your affairs exactly the way you intended when you signed it. A power of attorney misused is one of the single most common tools in real elder financial exploitation cases, because a bank employee has almost no way to tell the difference just by looking at a transaction. They are trained to watch for specific patterns. An agent under power of attorney suddenly making withdrawals for amounts or purposes that do not resemble your normal spending. An agent who becomes difficult to reach for verification. An agent who insists on being present for every single call with the bank on your behalf. Let me tell you about Beatrice. Beatrice is 83. She lives in Spokane, Washington. 5 years ago, she signed a durable power of attorney, naming her son as her agent in case her health ever declined. Last year, it did. A stroke left Beatrice unable to manage her own affairs. Her son stepped in, exactly as planned. He began paying her bills, managing her small portfolio, and handling her care expenses. 6 months in, he needed to withdraw a large sum to cover a move into an assisted living facility that required a substantial deposit. The bank flagged it. Large withdrawal, power of attorney, acting alone, account holder, not present. Under the bank's policy, they placed a hold and required additional verification. Beatrice's son was frustrated. He had done everything right. He had the legal document. He had the paperwork from the assisted living facility. But the bank still needed to confirm independently that Beatrice herself understood and consented to the arrangement, as much as her condition allowed, and that the funds were genuinely going where he said they were going. It took 4 days. 4 days of Beatrice's son providing the facility's contract, a letter from her physician, and a recorded conversation with a bank compliance officer confirming the purpose. Frustrating, but in the end, exactly the safeguard that protects families like Beatrice's from the much more common story where a different agent under a different power of attorney drains an account with nobody ever asking a single question. If you hold power of attorney for a parent or a spouse, the way to move fastest is the same lesson from every story in this video. Documentation before the transaction, not after. A letter from a facility, a letter from a physician, a clear written explanation of exactly what the money is for. Bring it with you the first time, not after the hold already happened. Now, here is the honest complication. Several of these patterns describe real, everyday, legitimate moments in an older adult's life. Helping a grandchild with college, paying for a wedding, adding an adult child to help manage bills, moving to be closer to family. None of that is exploitation, but to a fraud algorithm built to catch the worst case, it can look identical. That is not a flaw you can complain away. It is the actual trade-off built into this system, which is exactly why knowing this in advance matters so much. Before I answer how long they can hold it, I want you to know something else, something almost nobody ever tells account holders. You generally have the right to know that a hold exists, and roughly why, within a short window after it happens, not weeks of silence. Verified card. Source: Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, consumerfinance.gov. Institutions are not permitted to simply lock your account and say nothing at all. You are entitled to be told that a hold has been placed. You are entitled to ask, what category of concern triggered it? Fraud. or exploitation, or something else entirely. You will not always get every specific detail. Some information is legitimately protected, especially if a formal report has been filed with a state agency, because premature disclosure can sometimes tip off an actual bad actor. But a bank cannot simply refuse to tell you anything at all. If a bank employee tells you, "We cannot discuss this," full stop, that is very often not the whole truth. Ask specifically for the reason category, for the expected timeline, and for the name of who is handling the review. Write all three down. That single piece of knowledge changes the entire conversation from you begging for information to you asking for what you are legally owed. Now, let me answer the question almost everyone watching this is actually asking. How long can they actually hold my money? The honest answer depends on which institution froze it. If it is your regular bank and the hold is based on their own internal fraud detection policy, there is no single national deadline. State laws vary widely. Some states require an initial review within a matter of days. Others give institutions far more time. Verified card. Source: National Adult Protective Services Association, napsa-now.org. If it is a brokerage account covered under FINRA Rule 2165, the timeline is specific: an initial hold of up to 15 business days. If the firm's internal review is still not resolved, they can extend it another 10 business days. Verified card. Source: finra.org. That is the maximum under that specific rule for that specific reason. But here is what almost nobody knows. A hold under an elder exploitation statute is not the same thing as your bank simply deciding to keep your money forever. You have the right in nearly every state to demand a written explanation. You have the right to demand the specific legal basis for the hold. You have the right to request that the matter be escalated to your state's Adult Protective Services Office directly, so that a neutral third party is reviewing the situation alongside the bank. Many people never ask for that. They assume the bank's internal review is the only path. It is not. Let me tell you about Sherman again, because there is a second half to his story that most people never hear. After his bank stopped that wire and Sherman confirmed with his real grandson that everything was fine, the hold on that specific transaction lifted within the hour. But the review did not stop there. Because a large, unusual wire had been attempted, Sherman's entire account was flagged for a broader review that took 9 additional days before every restriction fully lifted. Sherman did not understand why a scam he had already avoided was still slowing him down. He called the bank and asked directly, "What is the legal basis for continuing to review my account when I already confirmed there was no fraud?" That single question changed everything, because it forced the bank to document exactly what remained under review and why. Within 2 days, the broader hold lifted completely. Sherman did not do anything complicated. He simply refused to accept silence as an answer. That is the difference this entire video is trying to hand you. Now let me walk you through what to actually do if you are the one standing at the counter, being told, "Your account is under review." Step 1. Ask for the specific hold in writing. Under most state laws and under FINRA rules, the institution must be able to tell you why the hold was placed and how long it is expected to last. Verified card. Source: finra.org. Do not accept, "We cannot tell you." Ask again, and ask for a supervisor. Step 2. Ask specifically for an expedited or urgent review. Most institutions have a fast-track process for cases where a real financial hardship is involved: a medical bill, a mortgage payment, a legal deadline. But that fast track is almost never offered automatically. You have to ask for it by name. Step 3. Bring documentation that proves the transaction is legitimate: an invoice, a contract, a wedding venue agreement, a closing statement, for a home sale. Anything with your name on it and a real business on the other end. The faster you can prove the purpose of the transfer, the faster the hold can be lifted. Step 4. If the hold involves a power of attorney or a family member acting on your behalf, that person should be prepared to speak with the bank directly and answer questions separately from you. Institutions are specifically trained to want to hear from the account holder alone at some point without anyone else in the room. That is not an insult. That is the actual safeguard working correctly. Step 5. If the freeze goes on too long, file a formal complaint with your state's banking regulator or with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau directly. Verified card. Source: Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, consumerfinance.gov. A formal complaint filed with a federal agency moves through an institution's system very differently than a phone call. Now let me show you the single most powerful thing you can do before any of this ever happens. It is called a trusted contact person. Most brokerage firms are now required to ask you to name one. Verified card. Source: finra.org. Many banks now offer the same option even though they are not required to. A trusted contact is not someone who has access to your money. They cannot withdraw a dollar. They cannot make a single decision. Their only role is this: if your bank ever has a concern about unusual activity on your account, they are legally permitted to call that one person and simply say, "We have a concern. Can you help us understand what is happening?" That single phone call can turn a 2-week freeze into a 2-day conversation. Because instead of a stranger reviewing your file in silence, somebody who actually knows you can explain in 30 seconds that the wedding is real, or the grandson really did go back to school, and everything is fine. Setting this up takes about 5 minutes at your bank or brokerage. It costs nothing, and almost nobody does it because almost nobody is ever told that it exists. I think about Verna standing at that counter for 9 days, and I think about how different that story would have been if her daughter's name had simply been on file as her trusted contact. One phone call, 9 days become one afternoon. There is a second protection worth setting up alongside the trusted contact. It is called an advance notification letter. Some banks call it a standing instruction. It is a short written letter on file with your bank that says, "I may make large gifts to family members for weddings, graduations, or medical needs. And here is a general sense of the pattern you can expect from my account." It does not commit you to anything specific. It simply gives the bank context before a transaction ever arrives instead of after. Verna, from earlier in this video, went back to her bank after her 9-day ordeal and set up exactly this. 6 months later, her son needed help with an unexpected medical bill. Verna wanted to send him $11,000. New payee, large amount. Every red flag that had trapped her before. This time, the review took 1 business day. Because the file already showed that gifts like this were a known, expected pattern for her account. Same woman, same kind of transaction. 9 days versus 1. That is not a small difference. That is the entire lesson of this video sitting inside a single letter. I think about Verna twice in this video. Once, standing at that counter, not knowing what to ask for. And once, 6 months later, getting an answer in 1 day because she finally knew. The only thing that changed between those 2 moments was information. Not a new law, not a different bank, information. That is exactly what the quiet rules exist to hand you before the day you need it. The exact wording for a standing instruction letter to give your bank. The exact request for a trusted contact form. The exact sentence to say if you are ever told your account is under review. Written down, plain English, so you are not standing at a counter the way Verna was the first time. You can find it at kevinexplains.shop. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment at the top, or scan the QR code on your screen right now. 7-day guarantee, no questions asked. Now, I want to give you the full picture before we close, because I promised you honesty at the start of this video. These laws exist for a real reason. Financial exploitation of older Americans is not rare. It is not exaggerated for a headline. It happens to smart people, careful people, people who worked their entire lives. The freeze that frustrates Verna is the same freeze that saved Sherman. You cannot have one without accepting the risk of the other. The goal is not to fight the system. The goal is to make sure it works correctly for you when it matters. Before we move to your checklist, let me give you one simple gut check, something you can actually remember the next time you are standing at a bank counter. Ask yourself 3 questions before any large transaction. Is the person I am sending this to new? Is the amount unusual for me specifically? And am I in a hurry? New payee, unusual amount, urgency. Any one of those alone is usually fine. All 3 at once is exactly the combination that triggers a hold almost every single time. If you notice all 3 stacking up, that is your own signal to slow down and call ahead before the bank's algorithm ever has to decide for you. Now, if you are watching this not for yourself, but because a parent or an older relative comes to mind, let me speak directly to you for a moment. You may be tempted to simply handle this yourself. Call the bank, set up the trusted contact, quietly, without mentioning it. I would gently push back on that instinct. Every protection in this video works best when the account holder is part of the conversation, not managed around, included. There is a real difference between a family that sets up protections together and a family where one adult child quietly restructures a parent's accounts without them fully understanding why. The first approach builds trust, and it is also, frankly, exactly what a bank wants to see if they ever do have questions. The second approach, even with the best intentions, can look from the outside uncomfortably similar to the exact pattern these laws were written to catch. So if you bring this video to a parent, bring it as a conversation, something like this. I watched something about how banks are freezing accounts to protect people from scams, and I want us to set up a couple of protections together so that if it ever happens to you, it gets fixed in a day, not 2 weeks. That sentence respects them. It does not manage them, and it is far more likely to actually get done than a conversation that starts with, "You need to let me handle this now." Now, your action checklist, 7 things this week. Step 1, call your bank and your brokerage firm and ask directly, "Can I add a trusted contact person to my account?" Ask for the form. It takes about 5 minutes, and it may be the single most useful thing you do all week. Step 2, ask whether your bank offers a standing instruction or an advance notification letter for expected large transactions. Not every bank calls it the same thing. Some call it a memo on file. Ask specifically for a way to note that gifts or large transfers to family are part of your normal pattern. Step 3, if you are planning any large transfer, a wedding gift, a down payment, a large medical bill, call ahead before you walk in and tell them what is coming and why. A transaction the bank is already expecting is far less likely to trigger a hold. Step 4, keep documentation for any large, unusual transfer before you make it. Contracts, invoices, written explanations. Bring it with you. Step 5, if a power of attorney is on file for your accounts, make sure that person knows they may be contacted directly and separately from you, and that this is normal, not something to be alarmed by. Step 6, write down the exact phrase, "I want to request an expedited review." Say those words out loud if you ever find yourself standing at a counter being told your account is under review. Most people never ask. You now will. Step 7, if you or someone you love has ever had an account frozen and did not know these rights existed, send them this video. They are not the only one this has happened to. And if you want me to look at your specific situation, Email me at kevinexplainsofficial@gmail.com. I read every one. Let me leave you with the thing I most want you to remember. Your bank can freeze your own money without a court order. That is real. That is happening more than ever before. But it is not a wall. It is a process, and every process has a door. Think back to every person in this video. Sherman, whose grandson's voice was cloned by a stranger and whose bank stopped it cold. Verna, who waited 9 days for a gift her own daughter should have received in 3. Otis and Colleen, a father and daughter who trusted each other completely and still spent 4 days wondering. Milo, who got ahead of the algorithm with a single phone call. Beatrice's son, who did everything right and still had to prove it. Every one of them ran into the exact same system. The difference, in every single story, was never the law. It was never the algorithm. It was whether someone knew what to do the moment the letter arrived or the teller's screen turned red. The people who get stuck, for weeks, are almost never the people who had no options. They are the people who did not know the door was there. You know now. I am Kevin. Thanks for watching. Do not forget to check the quiet rules at kevinexplains.shop.